Hello and welcome to 5 Minutes With by Climate Week NYC, bringing you a series of bite-sized interviews of some of the key people, organisations and businesses ahead of Climate Week NYC this September. Today, we are talking with Unilever. Unilever is one of the world's leading fast-moving consumer goods companies with sales in over 190 countries and reaching 2.5 billion people a day. Unilever has around 400 brands found in homes all around the world, including Dove, Knorr, Vaseline, Degree, Hellmann's, Lipton, Ben & Jerry's, Klondike, Magnum, Axe, 7th Generation, Breyers and Popsicle, to name but a few. So I'm delighted to be speaking with Thomas Lingard, Global Climate and Environment Director at Unilever, who can tell us a bit more about what sustainability means to all those brands and many more. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today. I have a lot of questions on my card here, so I am going to start the clock and jump straight into number one, which is quite simply, how important is sustainability at Unilever?
Well, thanks, Adam. Look, it's super important at Unilever. And I think if you were to stop people in the office or in a factory, they would tell you it's one of the reasons they joined the company. It's one of the reasons they stay at the company. And, wherever you look, whether it's operations, whether it's how we work through our value chain, our brands, or even how we try and exert influence on the wider policy landscape, it's really at the heart of everything we're trying to do.
And you've got quite a history, all your brands and together as an organisation. Has that changed over the years?
I think it's, if you go right back to the start of Unilever and the founders, over 100 years ago, it was obviously a very different context in Victorian Britain, a lot of social issues around hygiene not being met. And I think the business was founded with a very strong sense of social purpose around trying to, allow everybody to access soap and cleanliness and hygiene, which were the concerns of the day. And I think, as the company's developed, this idea of making products that have a positive impact on people's lives has been core to what Unilever's been about. And I think what you've seen in the last 20 years or so is this growing global awareness that socioeconomic growth has come with an environmental cost, and that that sort of trajectory is going to be unsustainable into the future. So the shift, I think, has been from an assumption that more and more products growth, fossil fuel consumption, this is all intrinsically good, to okay, this is more complex. We have to deliver the socioeconomic benefits, but do that in a way that isn't also trashing the planet at the same time. And that's what the economy as a whole is dealing with now, and it's certainly what businesses like Unilever, those tensions that we're dealing with at the same time.
Brilliant. I'd love to dig into that in a little bit more detail. I mean, what are the sort of landmark things that Unilever are doing when it comes to climate change?
Sure. Well, we're guided by a number of science-based targets. We think it's super important to align with what the science says is necessary to get on track to deliver the Paris Agreement. Sustainability starts at home. We've focused for a long time on our own operational footprint. We achieved 100% renewable grid electricity last year, and we've got a target to be fully 100% renewable energy, including thermal energy, by 2030. That's a lot more challenging, but we're on track. We've also got a full value chain target to halve the footprint of our products by 2030. That's including all of the up and downstream emissions associated with their manufacture and use too. And after a bumpy start in the early 2010s, we're now making good progress on that. And then recently, we announced a new net zero target to commit to getting to net zero by 2039, again across the value chain. And our brands, importantly, have come forward with a €1 billion climate and nature fund, which our brands will be using to drive investment in things that we hope will make a real difference on the ground. So lots going on here.
I would say it's really great to hear, some ambitious targets there for 2030 and 2039 respectively. I just love to, big year for climate this year, IPCC report a couple of months ago, COP26. What's the sort of message for Unilever this year in 2021 so you can get to those targets in 2030 and 2039?
Sure. Well, this is clearly, the period where we all need to go from sort of making targets and moving to action plans. And this is, real work on the ground with suppliers, in our innovation teams, thinking really quite radically. I think what the IPCC report shows is that these kind of continual incremental gains that we've all been making in reducing impact aren't going to cut it anymore. We're going to have some quite transformational solutions And you see that starting to affect even sort of portfolio choices for companies. For a business like ours, we're thinking a lot about the plant-based foods revolution and the role we can play as a food company in that. We've got great new brands like the Vegetarian Butcher that are giving consumers meat-free and dairy-free alternatives, which we know is a big source of emissions. So lots of innovation to really rethink what we make, how we make it, and how we can play a part in shifting the world to a net zero trajectory.
And mentioned at the beginning that you work in over 190 different countries. It's a lot of different governments. What role do government relationships play in the work that you're doing?
Well, governments are going to be critical to the net zero transition, right? This is a policy agenda as well as a technology and innovation agenda. And in fact, all of those things are bound up together. I mean, we believe very strongly in what we would call the ambition loop. We believe somebody needs to go first in raising ambition. We think it's actually easier for businesses to do that. We tend to, surprisingly, even be more long-term in our thinking than some governments sometimes. So we think it's on us and other leading businesses to come forward and say, the science is very clear. We've got to get to net zero. It is technically possible. It is going to require some policy innovation and technology innovation in order to get there. But we want to commit to getting to net zero and start to move with our own operations. And we think that in doing so, and in doing so in ever greater numbers, we can give confidence to governments who are maybe, are looking at historic models of growth and, fossil fueled growth and worried about whether they can successfully make a transition to a different kind of economy. We think by going first and creating a bit of political space for governments to set more ambitious targets, to work together, to change policy frameworks, remove fossil fuel subsidies, ramp up renewable energy and so on, that we've got more chance of collectively achieving that. So it's not an either or, it's a both and it's doing it together in a way that we can accelerate the progress we need to make this decade.
Brilliant, thank you, Thomas. And I can see we've gone way over time, but 400 brands is a lot of stuff to cover in 5 minutes. However, I'm gonna wave a magic wand and give you an opportunity for one final answer, sort of in a sentence, quick answer to this one. But if I gave you a magic wand and asked you to change one thing in the world relating to this, what would it be?
I think if I could wave a magic wand, it would really be to sort of banish doubt that the transition we're embarking on is possible. I think we're spending a little too much time, debating, is it going to all end in catastrophe or not? Can we do this or not? I think we know what we need to do. We know how we've got to do it. We just need to get on and do it. So that would be how I'd use that magic power.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad I used that magic power to give us one extra question. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic. And if you want to find out more, there's a lot more to hear. Unilever will actually be hosting a special event at the Hub Live at Climate Week NYC called Transform to Net Zero, the Supply Chain Perspective. That's taking place 8 till 9 Eastern Time on Wednesday, September the 22nd. And you can find details about that event as well as the full Climate Week NYC program, which runs from September 20th through to the 26th on our website and via the link below. But all that leaves me to say is thank you, Thomas, so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting and look forward to seeing you at Climate Week NYC.
Thanks for having me.